What's up, everyone? Welcome back to YGOPD, your Yu-Gi-Oh! Professional Development. Thank you so much for smashing that like goal last video. I am now back to showcase the deck analysis for this deck profile. You can find the link ideally here on screen, and if not, in the description, for my toilet paper, aka Tenyi Paleo deck. In this video, I'm going to have three main goals for you, which are right here on screen to show you the rationale for the deck as a whole, the synergy, interactions, and math with the deck, and just do a few quick test hands so you can see how it operates. It's especially important to note these test hands just because the deck plays to get to turn 3. That's how it establishes itself, and that's how you win. And so let's not waste any more time and give a quick shout out to our newest subs of the channel, Alex and Vidal. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you guys enjoy the content, and I will definitely do my best to keep you around. Let's go ahead and hop into the rationale of the deck. So the big goal of this deck is to abuse the Paleos as much as possible and in every way as possible. The way we do this is we're going to set up a few Paleos on board with, thanks to their own effect, are unaffected by monster effects, and we're going to keep them protected by battle with Rise to Full Height. So then when it wraps around back to our turn, we make our rank 2 Xyz, like Toad or Opabinia or any other of the rank 2 Paleos that are also unaffected by monster effects. We get to Zeus, and we just clear our opponent's board like nothing ever happened. From that point, we keep our own stuff if we have any, since the Paleos are unaffected by monster effects. From there, you have unlimited resources in your grave that you can sift through, plus an add back from Toad if that was a material detached from Zeus. And now your opponent is just stuck with a few cards in hand, if any, since you've wiped their whole board. And then you just play from there. So with that goal in mind, let's go ahead and move into the interactions for the deck, the synergy, and the math. All right, so I'm going to go over just a few kind of interactions and pieces that are just important to note through this deck as we play. The first one is this gives the deck an ability to bait negates as well as disrupt the opponent, allowing your plays to go through. That wasn't really possible without waiting a few extra turns for your traps to be live. Now we can just use Vishuddha to bait a negate early, then go ahead and make our plays, which is really, really good. Our next piece of interaction is that Tenyis themselves, they can summon them when you have no monsters on the field or all normal monsters. So in this case, whether you have nothing on board or if you only have Paleos on board, you can still special the Tenyis. The other important thing to note is that the Tenyis can use their effects while you have at least one normal monster on the field. It doesn't have to be just all normal monsters. So if you have a Toad as well as a couple Paleos on board, you can still banish that Vishuddha from your hand or grave to bounce something. You can still banish Ashina to special something. You can crash into something with a normal monster, trigger Shathana to bring it back and pop a target. So you're free to kind of use it whenever you want. On top of that, creating a card like Monk of the Tenyi provides a much better target for Rise to Full Height without having to sacrifice any of your level 2 frogs or Paleos as the attack target, or without having to waste banishing 2 Rise to Full Height to ensure you keep all your monsters. So just hitting that Monk of the Tenyi as the target is very, very important. The other thing to note is that Ashina only locks you into worms or Tenyis when you use its first effect to special summon from the deck. You can do everything else you want in the first turn, then abuse Ashina later as the follow-up after you've made all your plays. The other part is milling cards with Needlebug Nest has never felt better. Before, when we were trying to mill, you're only looking to mill maybe a Rise to Full Height or a Backjack as kind of the useful cards. Sure, you can mill Paleos, but let's just count those 6 just for this example. You're only about 63% likely to see one of those mills. But when you add in those 6 more Tenyis or more if you're playing them, seeing just one of those 12 cards brings your chances up to at least 90% from a mill with Needlebug Nest as opposed to just 63% with one of those 6 there. So really, really important. And my most favorite interaction by adding the Tenyis is you have the ability to loop and abuse powerful side cards like Kaiju, Lava Golem, or Sphere Mode with a card like Tenyi Vishuddha to bounce and resummon and keep clearing your opponent's board without having to worry about any pesky negates, board breakers, things like that. You're just clear to play. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle this up and see what we're working with here. So for our 5, we have Swap, we have Shathana, we have Trap Trick, we have Morella, and we have Rise. This is probably about as good as you could get when you ask for a test hand here. So we're going to zoom in just a little bit, and we're going to start off with some standard plays. We're going to discard our Shathana just because it is a water. I'm going to leave it up here just so you all can see, especially some in the swap. We're going to use the swap. We're going to dump a flip flop. We're going to return swap and normal it to go ahead and dump the Ronin from our deck to the graveyard. Put that right there. And then we can go ahead and banish the flip flop to special the Ronin. Shathana's over here in our grave. We'll overlay these two. We'll make a Toad. And then from there, we will set 3 and we'll pass. And then we're going to pass it to our opponent. And this deck aims for turn 3, so we'll just give that example. So opponent, now we're going on turn 2 in draw phase. I like to shotgun the Morella just because, and it gets a Paleo engrave. Go ahead and dump that Rise to full height. Standby phase, we can Toad, detaching the swap. I like detaching the swap just because you don't want to end up with 2 Ronin engraved just in case they have something. But I will special the swap and use swap's effect to dump the other Ronin from the deck to the grave. Go ahead and put that deck back. And so now we're working with, we have a Shathana, swap, Ronin, Rise, and a Paleo of our choice to work with. From here, what I'm going to go ahead and do, since we're still in standby, I like banishing the Rise, hitting the swap just to be safe. And then from here we could do a couple things. I'm actually just going to go ahead and why not use another Rise, doubling this guy's defense, chaining our Paleo, bringing it back. And then you can do a couple things here. You could use Trap Trick to search for something else if you want, which I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to go ahead and use that Trap Trick. And for the sake of this, I'm going to go ahead and grab a Nest just to see what more follow-ups we can get. But your options are pretty unlimited here. If you wanted to get a Lanchoila to return stuff back to the grave, you could do that. However you want. I just want more Paleos engraved, so I'm going to be greedy. I'm going to grab that Nest. I'm going to mill 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we dumped 2 Ashina and a flip-flop. That's really solid. Ashina is a good follow-up, and flip-flop is just more fuel for Ronin. So after that, the main play that I would typically do in this instance is I would use Toad to tribute the swap, to negate something, set it if I want. But from here now, your monsters are protected by battle. Your opponent can't attack anything else because you have Rise that was on the Swap Frog, and the Swap Frog is now gone. That's how it's ruled. So now you're just working with a Toad and a Morella. Should they get rid of your Toad, you can always use its effect to add back the swap as a follow-up, because the goal is to get to Zeus. Pretty much. And so from there, you can go ahead and draw for turn. And from here, we can normal the swap, use its effect, should we desire. Go ahead and dump either a swap or a flip-flop. I'm going to dump a swap. And now from here, it's just about playing the game of baiting out as many negates as you could possibly want. Our Paleozoic Olenoides is our draw for turn. So from here, you can do a couple things. You could banish the Ronin, bring it back, make a rank 2 in the form of Anomalocaris, or you could make Opabinia. If I'm really worried and I want to play it absolutely safe, what I typically will do is I'll make Opabinia first, just because it has the trap as material. Detach, search a trap, and in this case, I'm probably going to go for Canadia, just because I want to be able to attack with Opabinia and then use Zeus if I want. So we can use Canadia. It's going to probably get negated to bait out something. We can use Olenoides, bring back something else. And then from here, we still have 1, 2 swaps, a flip-flop, and a swap. So we have 4 Ronin uses that we could do right now. So however you want to play this, you can. The typical way I would do it is if we've already feel like we've comfortably cleared out all of their negates, then you can do it a couple different ways. You can attack with this, main phase 2, go into Zeus, wipe the board, and then make Toad after. If you're still a little bit nervous on that, what you can do, that I will do in this case, just to be safe, is I'll banish one of the swaps for a Ronin, overlay these 2. We'll go ahead and make Toad, and then we can crash in with one of these 2, Toad probably attacking over something a little bit smaller on the board, or if Canadia resolved, we attack over whatever was booked. And then from here, you can either make a double Zeus or a single Zeus with it being protected by Toad. And even then, say worst case, you wipe absolutely everything out. You can use Toad to put back something. In this case, probably put back a Toad. And then from there, you can still banish to special out a couple Ronins by banishing a swap and a flip-flop. Overlay these 2, and you have a Toad. So right there, you're good to go. Of course, we did choose to burn through a lot of our traps quicker. If you want, you can save those, but you don't have to. Let's see what we're working with for our second test hand. Let's see. Try to give us some space as to what we can see and what we can work with here. So we got Rise, Morella, Backjack, Swap, and a Backjack. Overall, this is still solid. I don't mind opening multiples of Backjack by any means. First thing I'm going to do, I am going to normal summon that Backjack. Get rid of that guy. For Almirage, if you choose to play Link Karibo of your link of choice for Backjack, you can most certainly do that as well. We're going to use Backjack. We're going to look at the top three. We got Vishuda, Ronin, and Nest. Those are all actually really good. So I'm actually just going to put them on top just like that, putting Nest on top. And then we're going to set 2 in terms of Morella and Rise. And we don't need to do much, believe it or not. We can just pass. On our opponent's turn, what I'm going to do is shotgun in either draw phase or standby. We're going to banish that Backjack, get that Nest, and I like the mills I saw, so I'm going to shotgun that Nest. We're going to hit Ronin and Vishuda like we saw. A Paleo, which is good, a flip-flop to make Ronin live, and a second Paleo, which is really, really good. So, that's really solid. From there, what we will do is I'll activate Morella, and then we'll chain a Paleo in our graveyard, bringing it back. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and dump a second Rise to full height. Shuffle that up, put that back. And then after that resolves, I'm going to go ahead and activate another Rise to full height, chaining another Paleo. And then from there, I will choose to banish one of the Rise to full heights. Sorry about that. And we will go ahead and target the Almirage. And so should it ever roll around on our opponent's turn, we can quick effect tribute the Almirage. And now our Paleos are unaffected by monster effects and can't die by battle. That's the point we wanted to get to. So ideally, they're not breaking through this board. They're not really getting around it. They might have a lot of negates, but I feel like we're perfectly fine to play through that. So we can draw for our turn. Go to standby main. And the first thing I would probably do is banish Vishuda from grave, since we have a non-effect monster, to target and banish, or target a card our opponent controls and return it to hand. So that is going to either get rid of a threat or bait out a negate for us for free. From there, go ahead and normal swap, and we could use its effect. If they negate it, and we can pretend that they will, we can say that's perfectly fine. And then from there, we've already gone through 2 negates. Let's see maybe if we can get a third negate baited. So we will go ahead and, yeah, let's just overlay these 2 for Opabinia. And if you want Toad, you can. I just like that Opabinia is unaffected by monster effects. We can detach. And then we can search for any trap of choice. I'll do Canadia, just to ideally say we can bait out the third negate by that point. So we'll activate it. If they block it, that sucks. If they don't, we can get a Paleo back. In this instance, we're going to assume that they will block it, which is kind of sad. But from there, again, you now have the ability to go one of 2 ways. If they blocked it, then you have a few more ways to play with Rise and keeping stuff safe with Ronin and all that good stuff. Otherwise, if they didn't, we can bring back that Canadia. We can banish that Swap and bring back a Ronin, but we're going to wait to do that. Because one thing we can do is we can just crash the Opabinia first. If it did resolve and we did book the face down monster, we keep the Opabinia and can just go straight to Zeus, which I really like, so we can pretend that happens. And we can use the Zeus, wipe the board. We then get to keep our Paleo because they're unaffected by monster effects, of course. And then now we can go ahead and main phase 2, banish the Swap for the Ronin, and then overlay these 2 into a Toad, and then we can set a Rise, and we have a Backjack in hand should we need it later. And then we also still have 1 more Rise in our graveyard, so from there we're pretty much set. And you kind of just rinse and repeat this state, Zeusing their board, making the Toad for the follow-up, Zeus and then Toad, Zeus and then Toad, until you gotten where you want to be. So then we'll see what our last cards look like for our final test hand. We got a Rise, a Nest, a Backjack, a Morella, and another backjack. Again, not bad by any means, but we'll see, try to explain how this goes to turn 3 rather well. So again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to normal that backjack, and we're going to link it away. And we're going to look at the top 3 cards of our deck. We got a Leonchoila, we got a Trap Trick, and we got another Leonchoila. I'm actually going to take this guy here. You can take whatever you want, or sorry, not take, but we're going to stack it that way. We're going to put Leonchoila on the deck, on the top, just like that. And we used backjack, sorry, to make Almirage, which was how we got that in the grave. So from there, we're going to have a backjack in our hand, and then we're just going to set these 3. And then our opponent's turn, I'm again going to shotgun the backjack to set this guy. I don't want to mill another one of these. I didn't think the mills were that great, so how I get around that is I'm going to start with Morella, and I'm going to use Morella to go ahead and dump a Rise to full height. Make sure we get all of this on screen. There we go. Sorry about the glare. I know there's kind of limited stuff I can do right now, but that's going to resolve. And then from there, I think I will go ahead and do the nest, chain our Paleo, and then we're going to mill 5 and see what we get. So we have, I'll try to put it here so we can see, Dinomiscus, Bashudo, which is solid, Ronin, which is solid, Leonchoila, which we still ended up hitting, and Leonchoila, which we still ended up hitting. Well, moral of the story is shuffle your deck better. So those are our 5, which again is not terrible by any means. We just have to be careful about how and when we rise to full height now at this point. But with that said, we are going to go ahead and activate the rise, and we're going to chain a Paleo. And remember, this is all happening in either the draw phase or the standby phase. And then from there, I would go ahead and banish a rise, target the Almirage, activate the Leonchoila, chain another Paleo in the graveyard, and then we get to put that rise back. Then from there, you're pretty much in the same boat where you can simply tribute Almirage. Your monsters are now all protected. It can roll back around to your turn. We draw, we hit a Trap Trick, and now from there, we can banish the Vashuda to bait a negate on our opponent's board by banishing it from the grave, since we have non-effect monster on the board. And then from here, you can do 2 ways. You can make Opabinia, try to bait out a negate, do something like that, get a second Paleo on the board, make the Toad, crash, and then make Zeus. Or the other option, which I kind of like in this case, since we don't have a card like Swap in the grave to recycle nicely off of Toad, you could overlay all 3 of these for Anomalocaris, and then use Anomalocaris' effect to quick effect Trident pop something that might be your last negate that you don't want to deal with. And the cool thing is they're not going to be able to stop it with a monster effect because it's unaffected. We can crash, and then from there we can obviously do our wonderful Downard play into Zeus himself. And then since we've already baited or chewed through 2 negates, I'm going to assume that ideally our opponent won't have anything left to stop the Zeus. So then we wipe their board, and then we can set the Trap Trick, and then we can even set the backjack if we want to clear with Zeus. And then we pass to our opponent, and now we have a live Zeus that we can use whenever we want, plus a bunch of follow-up. So we'll just look like what that follow-up looks like. We'll Trap Trick, or sorry, we'll not Trap Trick. We might as well. There's no reason not to. We'll Trap Trick, and in this case, I just want more follow-up. So I'm going to go ahead and banish a nest and set another nest. And when we activate Trap Trick, that allows us to, of course, chain a Paleo from the grave, put it on the board. And then we can activate Nest, and we can chain another Paleo and put that on the board right there. And then from here, after all that, we can Zeus whenever we want. And let's say we go ahead and do that. We keep our Paleos because they're unaffected. And then we can use Backjack to see what kind of follow-up we could get for next turn. We're looking at a Flip-Flop Prog, a Flip-Flop Prog, and a Morella. So whatever your choice is here is up to you. I kind of like the idea, since we've not used Opabinia yet, of taking the Flip-Flop as the normal summon, because then even then if something gets stopped, we can always then just use the Ronin that we still have sitting in grave. So I'm actually going to stack the Morella first, so that way we can banish, set the Morella, and then our draw for turn is the normal summon that we want. So when it rolls back around to us, we have 2 Paleos, with a normal summon, a Ronin follow-up, and a Morella to trigger more Paleos in our grave. Plus, we still had 2 Rise to full height in our grave that we've not yet used that we could use on our Zeus to keep everything else protected. That is it for the deck analysis. I thank you all so much for watching. It really means a lot that you've come to stick around and keep checking out the content. I hope to keep entertaining you, make things a little bit better as we keep going. I hope you learned something. And with that, I will see you all in the next one. Later.